The Raven, pages 76 to 94. Thursday, July 14th at 6:10 p.m. Watching that video the way Sarah edited it down just about sent me running through the house screaming for my mom. I wish I was kidding. The second time through, where she messed with the lighting, it was obvious the Raven had put a new book on my shelf. It didn't take me long to find it, because most of my books are paperbacks. This one is old, and it's got a hardback spine, one of those cloth covers. I set it on my desk and stared at it for about a minute. There's no writing anywhere on the outside, and there aren't very many pages. My first thought, this thing is loaded with toxic yellow gas that will pour out the second I open the cover, like in one of those ancient Batman shows. But curiosity got the better of me, and I carefully lifted the cover. Nothing. I don't mean nothing happened, I mean there was nothing inside. I flipped through the yellowed pages with my thumb, and they were all blank. It was like a ghost book, nothing on the spine, no words or drawings or pictures inside. The whole thing was 42 pages. New York Gold and Silver gave each of its assets a number before the company went belly up a long time ago. One of its assets was the Skeleton Creek Dredge, and its number? 42. Coincidence? Somehow I doubt it. With the crossbones, everything is connected. Everything has a meaning. There's something else. At the very back of the book, after the 42nd page, I found 2 sheets of folded paper. A death threat from the Raven? I sat there and told myself no matter what kind of message I was about to read, I was absolutely going straight downstairs and telling my parents everything. I thought about the Crossbones 3-part mission. 1, preserve freedom. 2, maintain secrecy. 3, destroy all enemies. Destroy all enemies was sounding very possible with me as the enemy. I half expected the Raven to jump out of the pages of the book and the ghost of old Joe Bush to crash through the window. They'd get me from both sides. I opened the letter, single-spaced on 2 sheets, and knew immediately who it was from. I'd seen this handwriting before. Hey, Ryan, I saw you at the clearing the other day. I was hiding up on the ridge, keeping an eye on my dad. He's been going into Raven mode lately, which is never a good thing. We're living up in this cave by the peak. Dang cold at night. He says we won't be here much longer, but I don't know. It feels like something's about to happen, something big. There's this metal box he's been carrying around forever. He keeps it pretty close, usually under his mattress, and the key is always around his neck. Yesterday, we were out chopping wood together, and he sent me back to the cave to refill a jug of water. I was there alone, and I knew where he'd hidden it. I mean, I didn't actually see him hide it, but I heard him piling rocks in the corner of the cave on our first night up here. He thought I was sleeping, but I wasn't. I moved all the rocks and found the metal box. Hit the lock with my axe. It took 3 big swings, but the lock finally busted off. I don't know why I did it. He's going to find out. He'll know it was me. I guess I was tired of the secrets. I thought maybe there was something in there that would get me out of this cave and back on the football team. Know what I mean? There were 2 things in the box, neither of which make any sense. One was a completely blank piece of paper. Well, there were 2 words at the top, but that was it. The words, the clause. A clause with no words, what the heck does that mean? There was also a book inside with nothing but blank pages. So the mysterious metal box had basically nothing inside. Makes me wonder if my dad is losing his marbles. Or maybe there's something to this stuff I can't understand on my own. I'm giving you the book, hoping you can help me. I have no idea why it's got no words or why it's so special, but trust me, it's a crossbone treasure, yeah? I know about the crossbones. Been dealing with it my whole life. I bet it's why my mom bolted before I was 3. She couldn't take all the secrecy, and you know what? I'm getting pretty sick of it myself. Let's figure this out, Ryan. Let's pull one over on these guys. I have a feeling we don't have much time. My dad's going to check the metal box at some point, and when he finds the stuff missing, I'm not sure what will happen. I'm going to head into town and leave the book in your room while my dad's sleeping. I can't do much from way up here in the woods, but I'll do what I can. There's a big divot in that giant tree my dad was chopping in the grove. If you find out anything useful, leave me a note there. I'll check the tree every day. Or maybe just drop me a note sometime. It's pretty lonely up here. Bring this whole crazy thing to an end, will you? And watch your back. I don't know what my dad is capable of anymore. Fish on. Your friend, Fitz. So it wasn't the Raven after all. It was Fitz in my room last night. He sneaked into my room in the middle of the night in his dad's rain slicker and nearly scared me half to death. Wow. I feel sorry for the guy. Must be a rough living in a cave with a Raven. It makes me wonder what I'd do if I were him. Also makes me happy I have parents who aren't cave-dwelling secret society members. What's a guy like Fitz supposed to do? I wish he could come down out of that cave and go back to work at the fly shop. I can't help seeing the similarities between the tree and the blue rock, where Sarah and I used to exchange private notes. Is it just me, or do I have a habit of making friends who like to keep secrets from their parents? Getting to the Blue Rock was easy when Sarah wanted to exchange a note, but exchanges with Fitz will be harder. I can mountain bike down the river trail, but it's over an hour to the campsite on a bike. Even longer coming back upstream. Communicating with Fitz is going to be some work. I called Sarah and spoke in my quietest whisper as I flipped the delicate pages in the book back and forth. She couldn't believe the book was totally empty, but she was thrilled about the fact that the Raven hadn't actually broken into my house. There was a pause on both ends, and I knew what she was thinking. Know why? Because I was thinking the exact same thing. If the Raven didn't come into my house, then he hadn't crossed some imaginary lines Sarah and I had both set up in our heads. We could wait a little longer before telling anyone what we were doing. We could follow the trail of the apostle and see where it led. All we had to do was figure out one more clue, number 3 on the Raven puzzle, and we'd know the road Sarah would need to follow. Somehow I had a feeling it would lead back to the empty book I held in my hand, and the clause, whatever that was. Friday, July 15th at 6:55 p.m. My parents are out playing cards down the street with the Munsies, old family friends, so I've got a couple of hours to languish in my journal. Things to write have been piling up, but the time and energy to write them down have been few and far between. Someone blabbed about the great fishing, probably the retired couple, even though they barely caught a thing, and the shop has been humming with fishermen ever since. Albert Verne seemed to sense the crush descending on Skeleton Creek and decided to call off the second-day float and head into Portland on a different assignment. He's supposed to be back early next week, after things die down, when Mayor Blake says I better get my act together. Time to get this story off the griddle before it leaves town for good, was how he phrased it. I have some major news to report, but first I just got to write down this Gladys Morgan moment. It's a classic. She came into the shop yesterday during a brief lull. I half expected to see her pull an axe out from behind her back and start taking swings on our floor to even things up after what we'd done to her library. But the ancient town librarian had other things on her mind. Don't think for a moment you can fool me. I know exactly what you're up to, she warned me. I was like, uh-oh, what does she know? Is there something I can help you with, Miss Morgan? I asked, glancing over at my dad, who was starting to pay closer attention than I was comfortable with. I'll get you back, Ryan McCrae. Just you wait, she went on. So it was about ripping her floor apart, or not. Miss Morgan, I have no idea what you're talking about. She glared at me over her bifocals. How dumb do you think I am? She pointed at me first, then my dad. Start carrying your weight with these reporters. Do you have any idea how many calls I'm taking? How many interviews I've done? The mayor is at my heels all day while you fish or talk about fishing or sell fishing stuff to a bunch of fishing idiots. Get with the program. She turned on her heels and stormed out of the shop before my dad or I had a chance to answer her. Then we both started laughing. I'm standing right here, she yelled from the front steps of the shop, the sound of our laughter drifting out the front windows and into the parking lot. Other than that, the moments of levity have been rare. I spent most of my time worried about Fitz, the ghost book, the Raven puzzle, sneak attacks by the Raven, being haunted by old Joe Bush, and mostly about Sarah. She's acting reckless again, and it's making me nervous. She called me a little over an hour ago from an Arctic Circle somewhere in Nevada. An Arctic Circle in the desert, I said? You've actually lost your mind. Arctic Circle, the restaurant, not the North Pole or whatever. A little trivia for you. They invented fry sauce. Pretty cool, huh? She was slurping on a drink they served called a Lime Ricky. I thought you were in L.A. until tomorrow morning, I asked. She told me the camp had ended at noon and that she was scheduled to stay the night in the dorm, then start the drive home tomorrow. Instead, she left the second the last class got out so her parents wouldn't get suspicious. Wait a second. I thought you said your parents were on board, I prodded her. I got a long pause followed by a shifty answer. They are on board. They just want me off the road by nightfall, so that's kind of a problem. Tell the truth, Sarah. What's going on? She hemmed and hawed, then spilled it. Okay, so maybe I didn't tell them everything. They're fine with the detours on the way home, but they won't let me drive at night. That's crazy, right? Like driving in the dark is a big deal or something? Right about then, I was siding with Sarah's parents. I could imagine her breaking down at midnight on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, thumbing a ride into some backwater town. Not a good thought. They booked me a hotel in Cheyenne for tomorrow night, Sarah explained, but it's a 16-hour drive if all I do is stop to use the bathroom and grab a sandwich. I would have had to have left at 5 in the morning tomorrow to get there before dark, but that wouldn't have gotten us what we need, which is why there's a day my parents don't know about. I did the calculations in my head. Sarah took off from L.A. in the early afternoon, so she was going to arrive at St. Mark's Church between 3 and 4 in the morning tonight. It's perfect, Ryan. Think about it. I'll get to our first location before the sun comes up, instead of when the sun is going down. I'll find the clue, then check into the hotel early, and snooze all day. Technically, I'm still checking in before dark, right? Anytime someone starts a sentence with the word technically, it's a cover for a lie that's about to follow. I don't know, Sarah. It all sounds kind of dangerous. What if your instructor calls them and says you left early? She told me it was L.A., where free spirits roam, and that her instructor was a hippie who had already fled to the beach for the weekend. Then she called me a chicken. Name calling is beneath you, I said. Sorry, it's just... Come on, Ryan, this is ideal. I can practically see the next Apostle video now. Don't you want to know what he's going to say? She was on her game for sure. I was curious, and I was holding us back, as usual. So I did a little calculating of my own, seeing where this was going. Let me guess. You'll wake up in Wyoming around 4 in the afternoon and call to check in with your parents, because that's when you're supposed to be checking in. Now you're getting it. I'll hit the road right after I call them, which should put me at the Spooksville Triangle in Missouri by 2 in the morning, and I'll get plenty of sleep. This way I can be at these locations at night when no one is around. Makes sense, right? It was hard to argue with Sarah's logic, but I was worried for her and told her so, especially since she's been feeling as if the ghost of old Joe Bush was somewhere nearby. Her answer to that wasn't as surprising as I expected it to be. I don't know. To tell you the truth, I think he's on our side. It's possible, whether it's my dad's old friend Henry or a ghost or some twisted version of the two. It's possible he isn't trying to harm us anymore, but how can we be sure? Just get to Cheyenne as safely as you can, I said, and no more surprises. I told her I'd be awake all night long, that she could call me any time, and that she better call me once she got to St. Mark's Church. If she broke down somewhere, she should call me first, and we'd figure it out together. And if she got tired, I advised her to stick her head out the window and scream. It's going to be a long night. I've got time to kill. I guess I'll go grab a few Mountain Dews and get back to the Raven puzzle. If Sarah's going to do all the exploring, the least I can do is figure this thing out for us. Friday, July 15th at 10:30 p.m. The mayor followed my parents down Main Street after the card game and gave me yet another list of news outlets to contact with follow-up questions. He said he'd give them to Gladys Morgan if I wanted, so I snatched the piece of paper out of his hand. I didn't need the town librarian returning to the fly shop with a sledgehammer. When the mayor left, I sat on the porch with my parents for half an hour or so. I yawned about every 5 seconds, and finally my mom turned to my dad and said, "You're working that boy too hard." My dad thought that was about the dumbest thing he'd ever heard. He went into one of his yarns about how hard life had been in the old days. It was all I could do not to throw up. My dad yawned after that. Then I did. Then he yawned again. "I've had better conversations with 2 stray dogs," my mom said. A few minutes later, my dad had fallen asleep on the porch, and my mom had her nose in a book, which was my cue to call it a night. When I got to my room, I found 3 text messages waiting for me, all from Sarah. 8:17 p.m. Rest stop, making good time. Sun will be down soon. I'm wide awake. 9:45 p.m. White Castle. Need I say more? 9:52 p.m. Almost forgot. I finished my documentaries on St. Mark's Church in Spooksville before I left camp. Got all inspired. Password is Fortunato. Check them out. The White Castle comment eludes me since I've never been. Apparently, they make tiny burgers that cost like 5 cents. That girl has got to get off the road. Her idea of good eats is getting sketchy. She'll be at St. Mark's Church all by herself before the sun comes up, and into the Spooksville Triangle soon after that. Better check out these documentaries so I know exactly what she's getting herself into.